What transpires after you achieve NBA stardom?
Beautiful assist.
On the court with Kobe Bryant, all in the name of a notorious murderer who is up for life in prison. This is Javaris Crittenton's tale. Because he was an A student while growing up in Atlanta's projects in the early 2000s, Javaris was the last person you'd anticipate to turn into a murderer. A basketball finalist and the class president, Javaris was an All-American for McDonald's by the time he graduated from high school in 2006 and was awarded a D1 scholarship at Georgia Tech. And after only a year of playing college basketball, Javaris signed a $2.6 million contract and achieved one of his greatest successes to date, being selected in the first round of the 2007 NBA draft by the Los Angeles Lakers. Javaris Crittenton, an NBA standout who is only 19 years old, is paired with Kobe Bryant. He thought he was on top of the world, but one night everything changed. Javaris was out having fun at the Block nightclub in Hollywood one night during his first off-season when he noticed someone from the other side of the floor. Dalla, a well-known rapper from Atlanta, is frequently seen with his group, wearing fancy clothing, flashy jewelry, and attractive women. A teenage Javaris decided to introduce himself after becoming enthralled, only to learn that Dalla and his group were a part of the infamous Mansfield Gangster Crips street gang in Los Angeles. And given that Javaris is a professional athlete, all he needed to do was leave the scene at that moment. But instead, he spent the entire night hanging out with Dalla and his group because he was so drawn in by the gangster lifestyle. And during the subsequent few months, Javaris got increasingly more integrated into the group. Eventually, he was recognized as an official Mansfield. Even though Javaris was causing a stir in the streets, his basketball career was a very different story. Javaris was never able to establish himself in the NBA after joining the gang. In the first 2 seasons, he was unfairly traded from the Lakers to the Grizzlies, then the Wizards. And his shaky basketball career ultimately collapsed in November of 2009. Javaris made the decision to play card games with his teammates while on a team flight to Washington in order to kill time. After losing thousands of dollars, Javaris was furious. So in the heat of the moment, he ended up fighting with Gilbert Arenas, a teammate, and yelling threats to rob him. He wants to settle the score like a genuine Mansfield Crip because Javaris is a member of his gang. He therefore pulled up to the Wizards Stadium a few days later and entered the team's locker room while carrying a loaded handgun. Then, following a heated argument, Javaris and Gilbert Arenas got into a Wild West standoff. Fortunately, things eventually calmed down and nobody was hurt, but that didn't stop the incident from being reported to the police. A few weeks later, Javaris was given a year of probation and charged with misdemeanor handgun possession. His contract with the Wizards was also canceled after the sentencing. The NBA had formally released 22-year-old Javaris after only 2.5 years. Although it appeared to be the absolute lowest point, it was actually only the tip of the iceberg. Javaris was devastated after being dismissed from the NBA, so I made the decision to return to Atlanta in search of his family's support. Instead, he encountered hostility and disapproval. People who had previously viewed him as their hometown hero now viewed him as a failure. Javaris has therefore turned to the only group of individuals he believes will welcome him, the Mansfield Gangster Crips. And by the spring of 2010, Javaris had turned into a gang member who would do everything to survive, even going so far as to contribute money to their jail account and assist the Creeps duck cops. However, soon all of his lads were locked up, leaving him with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. Javaris made a last-ditch decision to try out for the Charlotte Bobcats in an attempt to make a return in the NBA, but by 2011 he had failed miserably. With only 23 years old, no employment, family rejection, and the imprisonment of his closest buddy, Javaris felt completely alone. Javaris, who felt he had nothing left to lose, transformed into a ticking time bomb ready to go off at any second with just a slight prod. And that push came on a dark Atlanta night when Javaris was robbed of everything he had on him after leaving a neighborhood barbershop. This included his $25,000 black diamond necklace, his $30,000 black diamond watch. I mean, even got robbed of his iPhone and $25,000 by a rival gang Javaris recognized. Lil Tick, a member of the rock crew who is 17 years old, and after everything Javaris had gone through, this was the last straw. He desired to track out the tiny Tick and exact retribution. At 9:30 p.m. on August 19, 2011, Jarvis was in the backseat of a rented Chevy Tahoe headed toward Glen Rose Heights, a suburb of Atlanta, with his cousin Scooter in the driver's seat. Seeing these targets on the sidewalk as he turned onto Macon Drive and opened fire. However, instead of hitting Lil Tick, Javaris missed and unintentionally hit an innocent woman. As witnesses phoned the police, Javaris Crittenton fled the scene in a panic. The patient was taken to Grady Memorial Hospital as soon as the ambulance crew arrived, and 2 hours later, at 11:34 p.m., she was pronounced dead, making Javaris Crittenton a cold-blooded killer. Javaris escaped to Los Angeles just a few days after the murder as authorities started their investigation. The following week, they amassed a ton of evidence linking Lincoln Javaris to the crime, including witness accounts. His images were chosen from a police lineup, and the rental Tahoe being found with Javaris fingerprints and residue all over it. The FBI then detained Javaris Los Angeles after the police had gotten an arrest warrant, but it wouldn't be until April 2015 that he would actually get his day in court. Because of the overwhelming amount of evidence against Javaris at this point, a life sentence appeared imminent. On the first day of his murder trial, Javaris reached an agreement with the prosecution and pleaded guilty to aggravated assault with a firearm and voluntary manslaughter in exchange for the dismissal of several other charges. And as of the time of this recording, Javaris is being held at Georgia's Calhoun State Prison. He was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison as a result, whereas his anticipated release date is December 13, 2036, for good behavior.